What is up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the Numbers. These are my Draftkings MMA picks for UFC Vegas 86. We got Joe Pyfer going against Jack Hermansson.
I need all the wins, yeah. All that and all that is. You better move, you might get knocked out, knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out, knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out, knocked out.
And we are back talking some Draftkings for this 14-fight card. And yeah, this card is insane. We've had a ton of late notice replacements. It took Draftkings till like Thursday morning or Thursday afternoon to get some of these salaries in. We were missing salaries for a couple different fights, a couple different fighters, so that's why this video is getting out kind of later here on a Thursday evening. But yeah, curious to see weigh-ins for a couple of these guys. We have some guys coming down weight classes, Darius Flowers, Ihor Peteria on short notice. So yeah, I mean, this is going to be an interesting card to break down from a DraftKings perspective. Before we get into it all, if you guys could please do me a favor, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Check out dfsbythenumbers.com. There you'll find all my DraftKings content on there. Stats, targets, projections, ownership projections, rankings, DFS article, lineup optimizer, and much more. And also check out Prize Picks. Use promo code DFSBTN. And we will talk about my Prize Picks play later in the week or later in the show here. But yeah, I say we get right into it, guys. We're going to start with the fight doesn't go to decision lines up top. We have a fight that is anywhere from -800 to like -1,000 I saw for the fight doesn't go to decision. It is Robert Bryczek going against Ihor Peteria. And yeah, this is one of the fights they took a while to add on to DraftKings. So Bryczek was sitting around like -200 for a while, right? And now he's sitting at like -145. So money's coming in on Ihor Peteria. Peteria seems to be a very popular dog from a betting perspective. So, Peteria plus 125 on the money line right now. I think there's a lot of value at a $7,400 price tag. But, I think somebody's getting served here. I think somebody's getting served probably inside the first 5 minutes of this fight. Bryczek's a guy that's going to want to come forward, stalk his opponent, and take their head off. And Ihor Peteria wants to kind of do the same thing. Both these guys are just probably going to stand in the middle and bang until one man falls. I don't think either guy has good striking, defense, or durability. So, yeah, I think it's a one-round banger here, and I think the winner of this fight has a good chance to find his way on the optimal lineup. So I'm going to be very heavily exposed to this fight. I think Bryczek at 8,800 might go a little bit lower owned than he should just because he's only -145 at this point. But Ihor Peteria is going to be a very popular dog, and rightfully so. So, yeah, if this is a fight I really want to target from a DraftKings perspective. Next, we have the main event. Joe Pyfer going against Jack Hermansson at -350 for the fight doesn't go to decision. A main event that I want to be very heavily exposed to, almost 100% of this fight. You got Joe Pyfer, who, in my opinion, has the early finish upside. Joe Pyfer has 14 fights. I think only one of those fights have seen the third round. Like, this is a guy that's getting in and getting out. And yeah, I think if he wins this fight, it's going to be a knockout in the first or second round. So Joe Pyfer, 9,000, it makes a lot of sense. He will be the most exposed fighter on the slate in terms of ownership. But, rightfully so. And then on the flip side, you got Jack Hermansson, 7,200. You got nice salary savings there. And it all comes down to whether or not he's able to survive those first 7.5, 10 minutes. If so, he probably is going to have the better cardio, can maybe win minutes down the stretch, maybe get a finish down the stretch. It's just he needs to be able to survive those first 10 minutes, which will be tough. But, yeah, I think both sides are in play here. I'm going to have a ton of Joe Pyfer, but I think Jack Hermansson at 7,200 makes a lot of sense if you're looking for a salary savings play. Next, we got Michael Johnson going against Darius Flowers, a fight I want to heavily target, and it's because it is a Darius Flowers fight, and these fights typically end inside the distance. This guy, Flowers, has 6 losses, all 6 of them coming inside the distance. I don't think he has the best cardio. I don't think he has the best durability, and I think it's a really good matchup for Michael Johnson. The only problem is if you guys have been doing DraftKings for a while, watching the sport for a while, I mean, Michael Johnson just continuously drops the ball a lot. I mean, Michael Johnson's probably the most inconsistent fighter in UFC history. He's 21-19, so although I do like Michael Johnson here, it's hard to trust him, and he very well could get knocked out. But I'm going to have more Michael Johnson here. But Darius Flowers at 7,900, I think he has first-round knockout upside. And then we got Very interesting fight here. We got Carlos Praches going against Trevon Giles. The fight doesn't go to decision, minus 325 as well. You got Carlos Praches, who is a very long, rangy striker, 78-inch reach, a ton of power. I've seen him knock out guys with jabs, head kicks, knees, just a very dangerous fighter. And he's going against Trevon Giles, who has 5 losses, all 5 of them inside the distance. The durability is a serious concern for Trevon Giles. I think Trevon Giles is like a potential dart play this week, dart throw this week, in terms of how many times do we see these Contender Series guys come in here with some hype against the UFC veteran and go out there and drop the ball. The answer to that is a lot. We've seen it a lot. We've seen it a lot this year already. So, yeah, I think Carlos Praches, you've got to play him because he's dangerous and he has finish upside, but Trevon Giles is a dart throw for me this week at 7K. We'll get into our core plays here. We talked about him. Joe Pyfer going to be my highest exposed fighter on the slate. I think he finishes Jack Hermansson. I think he finishes him in the first round. I don't think Jack Hermansson's going to have success with the wrestling early. Joe Pyfer is going to be coming forward. We're in the smaller cage, which I do think is going to favor a guy like Joe Pyfer, who's going to want to cut off Jack Hermansson and land that big shot. And Joe Pyfer hits like a truck. We've seen Jack Hermansson hurt. We've seen him knocked out. Jack Hermansson's getting up there in age. So yeah, Joe Pyfer, 9,000. He's going to be the highest known fighter on the slate, but rightfully so. I like him to finish Jack Hermansson in the first or second round. Then we got Hyder Emil, 8,700. This was one of the fights that they did take a while to put on the slate here. But yeah, Hyder Emil going against Fernie Garcia. So this is going to be Hyder Emil's like third different opponent since I know he was supposed to fight Melsik Bagdasarian. He was supposed to fight Sha Lian, and then now he's fighting Fernie Garcia here. So I like Hyder Emil. I think people are going to be very low on him because, you go back and watch his Contender Series fight. It was awful. It was a terrible fight. So I think people are going to think this guy sucks. But this is a much different match. Like, this matchup couldn't be any more different, actually. Because in that matchup, his opponent attempted 23 takedowns, and that's just not Fernie Garcia's game. Fernie Garcia is a low-volume boxer with not a ton of power. Only one knockout win for Fernie Garcia. And Fernie Garcia 0-3 in the UFC. Coming in here, short notice, up a weight class. And I like the game of Hyder Emil, and I think the game of Hyder Emil is going to be something that scores well on Draftkings, as he's a guy that just comes forward and throws volume nonstop, balls to the wall style, can go super hard for 15 minutes, and I think all that volume is going to add up, can maybe mix in some takedowns, maybe a late finish, and at 8,700, I don't think he's going to be too popular as well. So I do like some Hyder Emil at 8,700. Michael Johnson, 8,300, terrifying, but, I think this is Michael Johnson's easiest fight in about 15 years. I really do. And with that said, he could very well get knocked out, but Michael Johnson, I think, is the better fighter in every single aspect of MMA, probably outside of pure power. Darius Flowers does have some solid power, but Michael Johnson's the better striker. His defensive wrestling is good. His cardio is good. He's fought the much better competition. And Darius Flowers is the guy that's going to go out there and try to knock you out in the first 3 minutes. If he does, he does. If he doesn't, tends to fall off a cliff, tends to get finished. Darius Flowers has been finished in all of his losses, so give me some Michael Johnson here at 8,300. Extremely untrustworthy, but that's why I'll have some Flowers as well. I think it's a must-target fight at these price tags. And then Rodolfo Vieira, 8,200. Hopefully this fight happens this time. The last time this fight was on, I think it got canceled during the card, which I hate when that happens, but they're running it back here. And yeah, I'm on the Rodolfo Vieira side, 8,200 in this pick'em type fight, just because Rodolfo Vieira has all the early finishing upside, in my opinion. He has all the grappling upside, and that's not debatable. And if Rodolfo Vieira does win this fight, I expect it to be a submission win in the first or second round. If Petrosian wins, I'm expecting either a decision or a late finish in the second or third round. I just think Vieira has much more upside in this matchup from a DraftKings perspective, in a fight that I do think finishes one way or another. Move on to the GPP plays here. Carlos Praches, 9,200. We talked about him a little bit. He's dangerous, and Trevon Giles loves to get finished. Trevon Giles has been finished in all 5 of his losses. I question the durability of Giles, the cardio of Giles. Carlos Praches, he's probably too expensive here, to be honest. Dana White's Contender Series guy, very unproven, but if he does go out there and win, I think he is going to pay off this price tag with an early knockout in the first or second round. Robert Brichek, 8,800. We talked about this fight. This is a fight that I think is going to be extremely important. This is a fight that I'm going to have a ton of exposure to because I see this fight ending within the first 5 minutes. These guys want to go out there and do the exact same thing, which is take their opponent's heads off. These guys are going to stand and bang until one man falls, and if Brichek wins, I think he's going to be not extremely low owned, but, a lot lower owned than he should be just because money's pouring in on Ihor Potieria. And I don't think this line's going to flip, but I mean, maybe it does. I mean, this line is getting closer and closer, every single day. So we'll see where this line ends up. And if it does end up being like a pick'em, or maybe Brzyczek does become the dog by fight time, he's going to be probably very low owned. So we'll see. So I'm going to monitor the line. But yeah, Brzyczek 8,800. If he wins, it's probably a first round knockout. That's really all he's been winning by lately. Dan Ige 8,600. Yeah, I think Dan Ige is going to be pretty popular this week. I see a lot of people on him, and rightfully so. I like Dan Ige as a fighter, and I like him in this matchup as well. What draws me to Dan Ige in this matchup specifically is he's going against a guy in Fili who can wrestle. It's in his back pocket, but that's not his game, and that really hasn't been his game in like 5 years. Like, there hasn't been a fight where Fili's completed more than a couple takedowns since like the Charles Jourdain fight back in 2019. So I'm not entirely worried about the wrestling of Fili. And this is a fight where, I think these guys are going to throw down. I think these guys are going to stand and bang. And I absolutely trust the durability of Dan Ige, who in 24 fights has never been finished. I trust his durability much more. And then I also trust the striking defense much more. I think Fili's very hittable. I think Fili's very chinny. And I think a Dan Ige knockout is very much in play this week. So at 8,600, I don't mind some Dan Ige. And then finally, Gregory Rodriguez at 9,100. I think he has some finishing upside as well. I like the volume of Rodriguez, the power of Rodriguez. And what I like about this matchup against Tavares is he's not going to have to really worry about what's coming, back at him in this fight. He's going against Brad Tavares, who's not a finisher. Brad Tavares has one finish win in the UFC. And, Rodriguez is just a much more dangerous fighter, the high-volume striker, the younger fighter as well. Brad Tavares has taken a ton of damage throughout his career, 28 fights in, and he's been knocked out 4 times. So, I think a Gregory Rodriguez knockout is very much in play here. Don't love the price tag, and I'm not sure how much upside Rodriguez does have. But, if Rodriguez does go out there and finish Tavares in those first 2 rounds, I think he could score pretty well. Obviously, Rodriguez, he's a BJJ black belt, elite grappler. He just doesn't use it, so I'm not really expecting that. If I'm playing Rodriguez, I'm playing him for his early knockout upside. All right, moving on to the Prize Picks Play of the Week. Last week we hit the Themba Garimbo less than 24.5 significant strikes when he went out there and just flatlined Pete Rodriguez in the first 30 seconds. It was incredible, but this week I'm going with a more, and I'm going with Haider Emil more than 54.5 significant strikes. And I thought this might be a little bit lower even because on the Contender Series he didn't land a ton, but like I said, on that Contender Series fight, his opponent attempted 23 takedowns, and that's just not Fernie Garcia's game. Haider Emil honestly probably hits this with like in the first round and a half. But the way this guy fights, just coming forward, nonstop pressure, nonstop volume, I think Haider Emil smashes this more. And give me Haider Emil for the more there. If you guys want to check out Prize Picks, use promo code DFSBTN and get yourself a 100% deposit match up to $100. And I also posted a Prize Picks video as well going through my favorite plays. All right, live dogs. First one here is Bogdan Guskov, 7,800. It's ugly, but, Bogdan Guskov, when he's winning fights, he's winning them in the first round. I don't really trust Zach Palga's chin. My worry here is I just feel like Zach Palga might go out there and just make this a terrible fight where, kind of like the Jordan Wright fight, right? Where, Zach Palga, that fight was awful, but respect to Palga, like that was probably the best path to victory, holding Jordan Wright against the cage, and maybe Palga does that here. Maybe Palga doesn't want to stand with Guskov, and rightfully so, but if he does stand with Guskov has a ton of power. The majority of his wins do come by first-round knockout, so give me the first-round upside of Guskov here, but just a terrible fight. Darius Flowers, 7,900. Yeah, I don't think he's that great, but what he does do well is he goes out there, balls to the wall for the first 3 minutes, kind of like a Guskov. And if Darius Flowers does win this fight, it's probably a first-round knockout. On top of that, we talked about Michael Johnson, extremely untrustworthy, dropping the ball all the time. So yeah, it shouldn't shock anybody if Darius Flowers went out there and got a first-round knockout. So I think both Bogdan Guskov and Darius Flowers, same thing, untrustworthy, but first-round upside regardless. And then Ihor Potieria, 7,400, kind of like the first two. It's like, if he wins, I kind of think it's a first-round knockout. If this fight gets extended, I don't even know what it's going to look like, because I think Brzyczek has probably questionable cardio. I think Peteria has very questionable cardio, especially coming in here on short notice. I just see this fight ending in the first round. I think somebody's getting served. Peteria, he has a ton of power. There's a lot of unknowns about Breachek. And in terms of line value, you're getting it here with Peteria. Like, this guy's plus 125 on the money line, only 7,400 on DraftKings, so I think he's going to have some popularity there. And yeah, if he wins, I think it's probably a first-round knockout. And then Jack Hermansson, 7,200. Yeah, I mean, he has to survive those first, I'd say, 7.5, 10 minutes. If so, I think he has a good chance to win this fight. If he can get on top of Joe Pyfer when Pyfer's tired in that third, fourth, or fifth round, I think he could do some damage, potentially get a late finish. I am on the Pyfer side myself, but there's not a lot of plays I really like down low. So that is drawing me to a little bit more Hermansson. I think I'm like a 60-40 split in terms of Pyfer and Hermansson there. Just hoping that, Hermansson can survive those first, 10 minutes. And obviously Hermansson's going to have some ownership here, but he's going to be a lot lower owned than Joe Pyfer, who is going to be the highest owned on the slate. So I don't mind some Hermansson. Again, there's not a ton of great plays down low whatsoever. Speaking of plays down low, kind of a dart throw, pump play. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Trevon Giles here, but it's just one of those fights where we see it literally all the time. The Contender Series guy comes in here, all hyped up, big favorite, expected to go out there and beat the UFC veteran, and it just goes wrong. It just goes bad, and everybody's upset. I mean, so Trevon Giles, although I'm not a big fan of the guy, he could potentially go out there and potentially fraud check Carlos Praches, who Carlos Praches has not fought the best competition. And on top of that, Praches has been finished in 5 of his 6 losses. So the durability could be an issue for Praches as well. So I will be sprinkling a little bit of Trevon Giles, not going crazy, because I think he does get knocked out, but going to be overweight to the field there on Officer Trevon Giles. And then fades Daniel Marcos, 9,300. I don't love this, this top range this week. You got Balaji Oki, who's 9,500. He's only a minus 190 favorite now against Timothy Kwamba. You got Loma Luke Boonmi at 9,400. And then you got Daniel Marcos at 9,300. And I love Daniel Marcos to win. I love him to win this fight. I think he wins it by decision, but I think he wins it by decision. He's not a high volume striker. He has no grappling, no wrestling. He's not going to get takedowns. And I don't think he finishes his fight, at least early on. Maybe a third round finish, if anything. But, Richie Long's a guy that has like 40-some fights, only been knocked out once in his career. So, yeah, I'm expecting a decision here from Marcos. No wrestling upside, no early finish upside. I think there's much better options that are literally like $1,000 or more cheaper this week than Daniel Marcos. So, again, not loving this high 9K range this week. There you guys have it. Thank you so much for watching. Do me a favor, leave a like on your way out. Subscribe to the channel. Check out dfsbythenumbers.com. Go check out all my content behind the scenes. Everything should be out. I still got to work on my DFS article. A little bit behind this week with the DraftKings stuff, considering the salaries were late. And then we had some newcomers, and we had just a big mess this week. And then we have weigh-ins tomorrow, which it could get even crazier as well. So looking forward to it regardless, and best of luck, guys, for UFC Vegas 86. We have a fun card this week, and then we have UFC 298 next week. Really looking forward to that. We'll talk to you guys soon. See you later.